Welcome everybody to this evening's webinar. Our April webinar every year, I always do a recap of our March DAC days, and that is what we're going to do. So what's new for 2026? And I know that vitamin E is absolutely not new for 2026, but we have come out with some new form of vitamin E that we're super excited about. So I want to chat a little bit about vitamin E first and the basics of vitamin E. I know that we've talked about it over and over again, but I think recapping is important, and then we'll get into the new product that we've launched. We've also got new and improved omega-3 fatty acid supplement that I'll talk about a wee bit at the end. So we all know that horses are fiber-based digesters. They're meant to eat large quantities of fresh green grass, move around, eat in herds, but our modern day horses live in stalls, eat cereal grains, and eat primarily dried hay. Um, and fresh green pasture is the richest source of vitamin E for a horse in the wild. But once that fresh green pasture is cut and cured to turn into hay, that vitamin E level drops rapidly. In the first week after cutting, losses of up to 80% of the vitamin E. And that's not because we're doing anything wrong. That is vitamin E doing what it does best. Vitamin E is a natural preservative. It's an antioxidant. So it is preserving that forage so that it doesn't rot and ferment. So the vitamin E losses are very normal. Now, I have worked with companies that have been able to get that hay. It's very dry where they make hay, so they cut it, it's super dry. They can immediately bale it, get it out of the light and get it under cover, and you will see that those hays that you can get out of the light very quickly, they will maintain a little bit more of that vitamin E, but the majority of hay just doesn't have that luxury. It sits and has to cure and dry so that we don't have other issues like mold, and it's the light primarily that breaks down that vitamin E. So when we think about vitamin E, and I've kind of skipped ahead a little bit, but these are the signs to me that a lot of people come to and say, my horse has these signs. And they don't necessarily think about vitamin E, but actual symptoms in the horse, just early minor vitamin E deficiency or not enough in the diet, you might just see some reduced performance. That might just mean a little bit of sore muscle, delayed muscle recovery, maybe just slightly weakened immune system. A more moderate deficiency symptoms would show as more of muscle weakness, loss of top line, poor stamina. You can see, I thought these pictures were these kind of drawings were very good in showing that, the bottom left-hand corner picture, we'd all love our horse to be nice and round like that. But unfortunately, we all too often see horses like the one above, where the neck's a little sunken at the withers, before and after the withers, the back's a little sunken, the hind quarter that should be a big muscle group is sunken. Above the stifle is sunken. Even that bulging neck underneath the neck is all a sign of muscle weakness and poor top line, and can be a sign of moderate vitamin E deficiency. Once we get into the severe deficiency in vitamin E, we're really looking at more disease states. There are actual diagnosed diseases: equine motor neuron disease, equine degenerative myoencephalopathy, and neuroaxonal dystrophy. And I'll talk about them a little bit, but hopefully none of us ever get to that point. But these horses really have a lot more muscle weakness, trembling. They can't stand very well, ataxia, they're kind of tripping over their own feet. So hopefully we can intervene before we get to that point. As we mentioned, why are these being caused? Number one, Most of our horses rely 100% on dry forage, hay, to meet their fiber requirements. And we know that hay loses vitamin E rapidly after it's harvested as pasture. Stall confinement, there's no fresh pasture. Even if people have horses access to pasture, typically it's just not enough to even meet maintenance, let alone the elevated requirements that we need for performance growing in pregnant mares. Also, if we have thin horses, we will get to the fact that vitamin E is a fat soluble vitamin. So it is, number one, stored in the fat, but it's also absorbed with fat. And so if you have a thin horse or one that has digestive upset, maybe some compromised gut, whether it be gastric ulcers or colonic ulcers, then we know that vitamin E absorption can be compromised. Um, when we look at, I always like to show this because we talk about vitamin E and selenium being powerful antioxidants, but do we really know what that means? And so oxidative stress or these free radicals, these unstable molecules, are caused by any kind of stress in the body, whether it's disease, exercise, all of these, even normal exercise where you're just breaking down muscle tissue and building it back up. When you get sore muscles, that's stress on your muscles, and that's lactic acid buildup, but that's also muscle damage. And you've got these free radicals bouncing around. That's the red one there. And when we say free radical and he's unhappy, what you see is the stable molecule has paired electrons. If you take yourself back to high school biology or chemistry and you think, yeah, I remember hearing about electrons and they're supposed to be in pairs. And everyone is happy if they're with a buddy and they've got a pair, right? But what you can see with that unstable molecule is he's lost a pair. He's got an unpaired electron, and that makes him very unhappy, and he's bouncing around causing all kinds of damage. And so what antioxidants do is they have just random extras that they can give away. So he's got an extra that he can give to that single electron and give him a pair, and then he goes on about his way being a stable molecule. So he turns those free radicals, those bouncing ones that are bouncing around, causing all the damage in the body, causing aging in your skin, causing all kinds of things. They're now stable and not causing any damage. But the antioxidant only has a certain amount of extra electrons to give away. And once he's given them away, then he's just a stable molecule himself. So we need to make sure that we continue feeding vitamin E and selenium, other antioxidants in the diet, so that we can continually, because those free radicals, those damaging ones, constantly, everything we do in the body creates those. And so we constantly are combating those, even just aging. We know the reproductive system has an extensive amount of oxidative stress, so we need antioxidants in the reproductive system. The muscular system, as I said, when you're doing exercise and you're breaking down tissue and you're rebuilding it to build big muscles. Obviously, we need protein, but we also need vitamin E to help grow those cells and repair those cells, because a function of exercise is that you're breaking down those cells and then you're repairing them and then you're building them, and that's how you get bigger muscles. So we know we definitely need vitamin E or antioxidants, period, for muscle health. Circulatory system, we know antioxidants, in particular vitamin E, help make red blood cells. They help to widen blood vessels so that blood can easily pass through them. So any horses that have a tendency to have bleeding that in their respiratory tract, that's a lot of pressure that you notice when a horse is just walking around the field. They're not bleeding out of their nose. It's when they exert themselves and they've got a lot of, the blood is pumping ferociously through their body, and it's putting a lot of pressure on those blood vessels, and we want to strengthen those blood vessels. We know vitamin E and other things like omega-3 fatty acids can help make those blood vessels stronger and more flexible. The immune system. Aging itself creates oxidative stress. That is what aging is. If you put a banana on a windowsill and you watch it break down, that is aging, and the actual aging process is oxidative stress. So those unpaired electrons, those ones bouncing around, that's what's causing the aging in your skin and your body. And so aging is just a natural breakdown. So in older animals and people, we want to put a lot of antioxidants. If you look at any face cream for humans, there's antioxidants because it's going to slow down that aging process. We know not only is aging just breaking down that tissue, we also know that older horses have a more weakened immune system, and so that those free radicals, that oxidative stress is attacking the immune system as well. So vitamin E for older horses is really important. Here are some of those actual diseases that I talked about. Vitamin E deficient myopathy. Okay, so that's what we deal with at varying stages in adult horses. Anything from a little bit of muscle wasting to maybe some twitching in those larger muscle groups, low head carriage, toe dragging. So your farrier can be your best friend because they can tell you, wow, your horse is really wearing away its toe, or it won't stand still. It's got some weakness in its hindquarter and it's constantly shifting its weight. These adult horses, we can typically, with effective vitamin E treatment, get them to recover within about 3 months. Any of you that have heard my protocol, we have usually done a 3-month protocol where really high doses and then taper it down. So high doses for a month and then taper down to more of a maintenance dose. When we get into equine motor neuron disease and neuroaxonal dystrophy and that myoencephalopathy, these are usually veterinary diagnosed. I mean, all of these, vitamin E is really the only blood parameter, save selenium, but vitamin E you can test in the blood. So many other nutrients you cannot test in the blood, but vitamin E and selenium that you can. So, but equine motor neuron disease and this neuroaxonal dystrophy are going to be diagnosed by your veterinarian. And this is severe vitamin E deficiency and potentially some other genetic underlying predisposition as well. With the motor neuron disease, it's a 50-50 really. 40% of cases improve with treatment, 40% stabilize but remain disfigured. And you'll notice these horses, it almost looks like someone's taken an ice cream scoop and just scooped out the muscle, because muscle wasting is a big issue with these guys. Prolonged laying down, but 20% just can't be fixed and they end up progressing and need to be euthanized. The neuroaxonal dystrophy and the degenerative myoencephalopathy, there you're going to see that more in 6 to 12-month-olds, so weanlings to yearlings. And the way that they diagnose that, I don't know whether I've got the video. No, I don't think I have the video here, but some of you have seen it. They'll actually sharply turn the horse, and horses, when you pull them around in a circle, almost like you're doing a pirouette on their hindquarter, they should know where their front feet are and not step on their front feet. But these guys, that's one of the classic signs, is they step on their front feet. If you make them step up and down off like a little ledge, they'll usually trip because they just don't know, don't have good foot placement. So that's vitamin E, very briefly, where it's used, why we're in this predicament of very low vitamin E across the board in horses. So there are two different types of vitamins, right? There's fat-soluble vitamins and water-soluble vitamins. Water-soluble vitamins we'll talk about in a little bit, but fat-soluble vitamins are vitamin A, D, E, and K, and they are absorbed with fat through the intestinal wall. And you can see, look at the amount of fat-soluble vitamins that's on the right-hand side here, are absorbed through the intestinal wall. Not very many at a time, because they're actually going to be stored in the system. They're going to be stored in the bloodstream or in the liver to be used later on. Water-soluble vitamins, though, primarily your B vitamins, they are absorbed continually. They're not stored in the body. They're just continually absorbed and then into the bloodstream, off to get used or flushed out. So again, your B vitamins and vitamin C, these are all water-soluble vitamins, absorbed directly in the bloodstream. You don't need anything to carry them there. They don't need to be wrapped in fat or anything, but they're going to, any excess, they're just going to be excreted in the urine, and they're eliminated from the body quite quickly. Vitamin D, E, K, and A, these are all our fat-soluble vitamins. And as I mentioned, they need to be stored. They're stored in the body's fat and liver. They remain in the body for a long time. So think about in the wild, if these fat-soluble vitamins primarily come from fresh green grass, and let's say the horse had access, 24-hour access to fresh green grass, they would eat a lot of these fat soluble vitamins in the spring and fall, but in the summer and winter when the grass wanes, that's okay. They're going to draw on their fat stores. So they ate a lot and absorbed a lot and stored it away when it was in abundance, but then when it wasn't available, they were able to utilize it from their fat stores. But if the horse isn't very fat, then there really wasn't anywhere to store it. And they also have to be kind of encapsulated in this fat layer in order to absorb them. So we start this kind of, okay, let's talk about commercially available vitamin E. And we have to start at the very beginning, and that's, what are we buying? Are we buying natural versus synthetic? And natural vitamin E has superior bioavailability, better tissue absorption, and better retention in the body. Like, that's just what we've said vitamin E is supposed to do, and natural vitamin E has a much better ability to do that. When you look at it on a feed tag, you're going to see this D-alpha tocopherol. You can see down there in the ingredients, I think D-alpha tocopherol acetate, and that amorphous silica, that's just a little carrier so that it doesn't all clump together and stick together. But anytime you see the D-alpha, that is natural vitamin E. So DAC-E natural is a prime example of that. On the right-hand side, this Health E maximum strength vitamin E product. If you look at the ingredients, it's DL alpha tocopherol, and DL, if you see that little L, that means it's synthetic. It's less efficient uptake, faster excretion. And look, you might find synthetic vitamin E in some feeds. Some feed companies will use a combination of synthetic and natural vitamin E in a feed where you're feeding, 4 or 5 pounds a day. But when you're looking at a supplement, and we're buying supplements because we need extra very bioavailable vitamin E, you absolutely need to be feeding natural vitamin E. No way am I ever bothering with synthetic vitamin E. Doesn't matter whether it's maximum strength or whatever. Then we get into the form. Okay, so liquid versus water soluble. Liquid just means it's in a liquid form. It's not always natural. For me, it's a convenience-based product, right? Some people don't like dealing with powder. They're worried that their horse is sifting it out and they want it to be in a liquid form. But still, I want to make sure that this liquid form is natural vitamin E. So the first one I've got here, this Penwood's product, DL alpha tocopherol. The healthy E oil is again DL alpha tocopherol. These are both synthetic vitamin E. The Equine Omega Complete, that one is it's all natural vitamin E, and I know on the back it actually has D alpha tocopherol. So that, but these are not water soluble. These are not any more bioavailable than any natural powdered vitamin E, right? And the way that you can tell that it's just natural vitamin E in a convenience package is it's suspended in oil, right? Soybean oil, mechanically extracted soybean oil. Oh, I skipped ahead. Then we've got mechanical cold pressed soybean oil. So these products are all suspended in oil. So these are straight up just a convenience product. This is not any more bioavailable than the powdered vitamin E. Oh, sorry, skipping ahead. So then the next question is liquid versus water soluble. So a lot of times your veterinarian or someone might say to you, oh, you need a liquid vitamin E because you need it to be much more bioavailable to the horse. Really, what they're saying is you need a water soluble, which is much more bioavailable. All right. And the first way to tell, okay, number one, it's in a liquid form. And then you look at the ingredients, and the first ingredient is water. If it is suspended in water and it's D-alpha tocopherol, then now we're looking at something that's more bioavailable, all right? More rapid absorption. I have learned, though, that even within water soluble, there's different forms. There's what we call micellizing as a form of making this fat blend with water, because that's really what we're doing. We're trying to make a fat soluble vitamin, utilize water soluble vitamin receptors, and be much more highly absorbed, or nanodispersion. And right now, up until our product, these were the only ones on the market. You have the M-Cell, the Elevate, the Vitamin E liquid from Smart Pack, and Nano E. These are the only water-soluble vitamin E products available for horses. Okay, so your M-Cell, your Smart and Simple Vitamin E, and the Elevate, these all utilize micellizing technology. It means you kind of wrap this layer of water around your little fat cell in order to make it more absorbable. And I shouldn't say that it's water, it's actually a solvent to enable that fat to be evenly dispersed in water. So if you look under the microscope, these little fat globules that have a solvent around them, they're really quite large in size. It still depends on fat digestion. So if you have a skinny horse, or you have a horse that isn't eating a lot of fat in their diet, then absorption can really vary. And absorption can also vary greatly with gut health. So let's say we already have a horse that's got some hindgut ulcers, or has got some diarrhea, or leaky gut, or fecal water syndrome, any number of different gut issues. Then we know that absorption of this type of water-soluble vitamin E can vary. And that's quite interesting to me because of the M-Cell products specifically, I've just anecdotally had people say, oh, it hasn't been that bioavailable. Some people have had great success with it, and others have said, I tested my horse, he was really low in vitamin E, and then the vet tested again and it hadn't changed at all. So that makes a lot more sense to me now. This is the micellizing technology again. That's a large molecule. They've used a chemical solvent to get it to mix with water. But the bottom line is absorption efficiency can vary between horses, and specifically if you have gut health issues. So that's the M-Cell, the Smart Pack product, and the Elevate by Kentucky Performance Products. Then there's this nano dispersion technology, and up until the liquid E, Nano E from KEL was the only product of its kind that used this nano dispersion technology. And what they do is they take that vitamin E, and they don't use any chemicals or anything. They just make it tiny, microscopic little beads. So they really break down the particle size so that it mixes evenly with water. It absorbs extremely quickly in the gut, raises blood levels way more efficiently. It's way less dependent, if not completely independent of fat digestion and way more consistent results. So the liquid E natural, LQE natural, water soluble, and the nano E utilize the same nano dispersion technology, which is really cutting edge. Now, I will say that all of these water soluble, the micellized or the nano dispersion, will absorb faster than your powdered forms. But look, all of them are more expensive. So I would be going with a nano dispersion because it's going to be extremely more efficient. That's the label that we've got. Here's a graph of some research comparing, okay, if you give a horse a 5,000 IU oral dose, and we're looking at um, synthetic vitamin E, how that increases serum vitamin E, just plain natural powdered vitamin E, the micellized would, and then the nano dispersed E. And you can see that it's just significantly better as compared to the powdered or even the micellized forms. So natural vitamin, this is a question that I knew we would get a lot of. Who needs natural vitamin E? Well, stabled horses, poor pasture, drought, exercising horses, muscle soreness, uneven gait, top line uneven muscle development. You know, so many people try to find protein supplements for top line. If you've heard me before, you know that top line for me, it's vitamin E, vitamin E. Thin horses, broodmare, stallions. You know, I can make a case for every horse on the planet can eat DDA and vitamin E. But then it comes to, okay, now you've got these two forms. Which one am I supposed to pick? Am I supposed to pick the natural powder or the natural nano dispersed water soluble, highly absorbable, rapidly absorbable? Okay, so if we're looking for maintenance, long-term support, we've got a healthy digestion, moderate to high fat diet. We're really looking for avoidance and a more cost effective. Then we're 100% going with the DACI natural powder. If we need rapid elevation, we've had a blood test, we've got a really low vitamin E, diagnosed deficiency, we've got neurologic issues, thin horse, or intense training and high stress, then I'm going with the liquid E natural water soluble. Now, it's not to say that the E natural water soluble is what they stay on. Remember, I said I have this 3-month protocol. I might start with a month on the liquid E and then when I'm tapering down, go to the powdered. Um, so I think I don't want the liquid product to cannibalize the use or sale of the powder, but I think it was a niche that we were not filling before, and we didn't have that rapidly absorbable kind of water soluble that a lot of veterinarians are recommending. Because, you know, when you get to seeing your vet, you're seeing worst case scenario. We've got neurological issues, we've got muscle issues, nothing's been able to correct it. So they are kind of trying to bring in the big guns. So um, I think that we can fill the needs of all horses with those two products. So that's vitamin E. I'm super excited about, you know, the new liquid E. But we also, you know, a lot of times we will bring out a product because it serves a purpose, but over time, you know, whether it's palatability, whether it's cost effective, whether it's format, you know, we get feedback and we need to adjust. And the Breeders Excel and the DHA Perform were products that we needed to adjust. So the DHA Perform, as you remember, was just straight DHA. It looked like fish food. The price of DHA went through the roof. It wasn't super palatable. So we said, okay, we cannot sell this product anymore. So for the last, I think, year, at least two, maybe two, we've not been selling the DHA Perform, and we just had the Breeders Excel. The Breeders Excel is a little less concentrated so that it didn't smell, but it was a 1 pound a day feeding rate. And when you call something Breeders Excel, obviously then marketing becomes challenging because people just think it's a breeding supplement. And really, when we designed it, it was a breeding supplement. It was high amounts of vitamin E and DHA to improve semen and ovarian quality. We also, over the years, though, have realized that omega-3 fatty acids, in particular DHA, are super effective for blood vessels, for horses with bleeding, for immune system, for allergies. Um, so I said, okay, we got to change this up and kind of find something that is going to not be stinky, not have a huge feeding rate, and be a little bit more cost effective, and change the name of it so that it's not just marketed to breeding horses. So we now have the Omega Excel. Anything that I've named, I try to name it more as a more description of what it is. So it's our omega fatty acid supplement, right? It's vitamin E, still got 1,000 IUs of vitamin E. It's still got the same 15 grams or 15,000 milligrams of DHA. Instead of it being 16 ounces or a pound feeding rate, the feeding rate is 4 ounces. So we cut that by a fourth. You will also see there I've got niacin or B3, and I've got 5 grams of niacin. Niacin's a B vitamin, but in particular, it's a precursor to a new hot, trendy ingredient called NAD+. Um, to my knowledge, this is the very first equine supplement, commercial supplement to contain NAD. I mean, anyone that is being marketed to in the kind of human supplement realm, if you haven't seen an NAD supplement, you must be living under a rock. I mean, they are everywhere at the moment. It's cutting edge for aging, for cell health, for immune function. But what we know is that actually orally consuming NAD, the actual NAD, is ineffective because you can't absorb it. You can absorb the precursor, and your body is really good at still making it. So with some things, as your body ages, it gets, why we have to supplement certain ingredients is because your body just slows down production and can't make those anymore. The body continues to be good at making NAD. It just doesn't have enough of that precursor. And in our case, we're using a B vitamin, niacin. So what we've done, it's a 2 to 4 ounce feeding rate, same active ingredient, super concentrated, improved the smell because we have a different source of DHA. And the marketing is clearer. It's much easier for you guys to sell. It's our omega fatty acid supplement. So what on earth is this NAD? Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. And in human nutrition and human medicine, a lot of people are doing injections or infusions, and we're not going to do that with horses. So again, we're feeding that precursor. But what on earth is it used for? Converting food into usable energy. And I know in the horse world, when we say the word energy, we immediately think go fast. Think about energy, the word energy to mean fuel. And opening your eyes, breathing, your heart pumping, standing up out of a chair, growing a hair growth, growing a baby, all of these things require energy. Just surviving requires energy. And as animals and people age, everything's slowly breaking down. We talked about oxidative stress before as a natural function of aging. And so, yes, we're feeding things like antioxidants like vitamin E and selenium, but we also, in order to repair that tissue, build muscle, improve brain health, all of this takes energy, right? So we need to be able to get more energy into the cell, and NAD it's really energy. If you don't have enough energy, NAD, you don't have energy production. So it's, think about it a little bit like the chromium that we have in our DAC metabolic, which helps to drive insulin. It helps to get that glucose out of the bloodstream and into the cell so it can be utilized as energy. NAD is another form of energy. They don't absorb the NAD, neither do we, so we use these different precursors, niacin, nicotinamide, tryptophan. Niacin is the most palatable to horses. So if you think about performance horses in particular, race horses, barrel racing horses, riding horses that do anything at speed or endurance, recovery, muscle energy, muscle building, and then all of the stress that's on these animals, they need to use energy to recover from that stress. And so they have such high energy demands. Without NAD, the muscles can't effectively generate energy. So this isn't like we're adding some weird thing that the body doesn't know about. NAD is a normal nutrient or biochemical process in the body. We just know as animals age, the production slows, and we don't want to age. We don't want to slow down, right? We don't want to fatigue sooner. We want to keep young. So think about NAD a little bit like the fountain of youth. We want to get more functional years out of our animals. Energy production slows. If NAD becomes limiting, which is a natural function of aging, energy production slows, fatigue sooner. So if we can give the ability to make more NAD, then we will get more energy during those high workloads, recover faster, deal with stress. So aging performance horses. We've done a really good job. This is a conversation I've been having a lot lately. We've done a really good job of having horses live a long time into their 40s. 30s and 40s is normal for horses. I don't think we have yet tapped into having horses be productive for longer. We've got a lot of old horses sitting in fields doing nothing, but we haven't tapped into a lot of those 30-year-old horses still being functional, not just having a kid ride it around a field every once in a while, but actually being productive. So, as we said, NAD levels decline with age. So older performance horses, it's just natural that slower recovery, muscle tone, reduced performance. If we can drive more NAD in those horses, we can have horses age better, right? They're going to be, let's call them aging athletes. Instead of retiring geriatrics, they're older performance horses. They're actually still performing. In metabolic horses, we know NAD plays a role in glucose metabolism and insulin function. Illness recovery, transport, heat stress, all of these stresses require energy to recover, right? And so NAD is another way that we've talked about how chromium fuels energy. We talked about chromium and heat stress. NAD is just another way to get more fuel or energy into the body. NAD levels naturally decline with age, so we want to have those horses live longer but be productive longer. Reproductive tissue is heavily reliant on energy, be it eggs or sperm quality or even just uterine repair. Energy drives recovery. All of these things depend on the availability of NAD. Sperm motility, energy driven. So again, what causes these NAD levels to drop? Intense exercise, aging, illness, heat stress. And it's not that it's causing them to drop, just randomly making NAD drop. It's causing, sorry, my screen just dropped because it didn't have enough NAD, I guess. I don't know. It's causing the body to use more energy. So with intense exercise, you use more energy. So that decreases NAD because NAD is driving energy. Aging, we're using more energy just to fight off that aging process and stay healthy. Heat stress, travel, breeding, oxidative stress, all of these are using energy. So we need to be supplying more. We've got this seesaw, and as you age, you take more than you give, and we need to balance that out. And how we're balancing that out by giving more than we're taking is by putting more NAD into the body. So niacin helps the horse produce that NAD. Now we're talking about the omega supplement itself, the omega excel. We've got the niacin with the NAD. The DHA supports healthy cells, muscle function, decreases inflammation, and then the natural vitamin E protects muscles against stress as well. So you put all these three together, and we're supporting energy, muscle health, and recovery, maintaining stamina so they can perform at their best. So simple takeaway: energy production plus muscle protection equals better recovery. Um, so I don't care whether it's a broodmare, an older horse, an exercising horse. There's so many uses for this Omega XL product that's just much more palatable. Um, as I said, 2 to 4 ounce feeding rate. It isn't going to be pelleted because one of the things we find when the DHA, being a marine-based product, has it had a tendency to be smelly. And anytime you add heat, so if you pellet something, you're adding heat and pressure that can kind of expose that or enhance that smell. So we're trying to see how it goes as a meal, as a powder, and not a pellet. And that also decreases the cost as well. But we will see how we go with that. So with that, do we have any questions? I think there was one question. Omega Excel, will this help with breathing issues? 100% Nicole, yes. When we came out with the DHA Perform, I had several studies that I was showing about how DHA in particular, there'd been a bunch of research looking at DHA on specifically airway disorders in horses and how it helped with those blood vessels and made them more flexible. And so I 100% believe that the DHA, omega, and the vitamin E and the NAD will just be a real killer combo for those breathing issues and allergies. So if we just think outside of like performance that we've talked about, whether it be brood mares or exercise, think about allergies, think about breathing issues, reproduction. I mean, again, if money was no option, I would 100% be feeding every horse DDA, vitamin E, and this Omega Excel every day. I know that I have to be realistic, and money is. Um, so the issue that we've had is it's kind of, because we didn't pellet it, it's a little bit fluffy and it hasn't fit into one of our standard bag sizes. But I think that's taken care of now. I don't know whether Andy has been in touch with the office. I know I was talking to Furman the other day. Oh, RJ can touch base on that. I know, RJ, why don't you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, so it's going to be in a 20-pound bag. Got a brand new bag being designed right now. Should have it here shortly. Um, all is, we wanted to put it into one of our bags and match everything else. But exactly like Tanya said, being that it was a little more fluffy than what we anticipated, we couldn't fit it into an existing size. So we have a brand new bag coming. It's ordered as soon as it gets here. It'll be on the market, ready to rock and roll. Furman and I are working diligently on that. We're hoping in the next week we'll have it and be able to sell it. And those that were at DAC Days again get their discounted price on that.
This is RJ. I'll put you on the spot. This is our first um, webinar since DAC Days. Have you got like a couple of takeaways from DAC Days? Were there great meeting sales? Like any insight from DAC Days you want to share with the group?
Yeah, it was. Obviously we love deck days. I joke about it and say I look forward to it all the way up until the day of, and then I'm like, all right, let's get it over with because the everything that goes into it. But having our staff in town, the training that we did this year, having Kevin West as our MC, who is our coach on the sales side and office side, did a fantastic job with us. I think that our whole group can say the same thing on that. We had our meeting on Tuesday of this week and breaking down DAC days. A lot of positives, things that we're going to change. You know, I always say, if and my dad's always said the same thing. If you can't find something to change and get better at, then you're going to be behind the eight ball. So we have a handful of things we want to change, get better at. But as far as sales numbers, everything, obviously you want to see that sale number, but truly seeing the new customers come to our event, which we had over 40, I think we had 46 new customers this year at DAC Days. That number is what we want to see. We want to see the new people be there, enjoy it, see what it's all about, come see our facility. Uh, we can't say enough about that. And then those that come every single year, we can't applaud them enough either because that's what makes DAC, roll every day. So we appreciate every bit of it. Our team is always working to better ourselves, to better things for you guys that are, on these webinars, coming to the conferences, hosting the meetings. Steve and Tanya doing everything they can to always better our products to set ourselves different from the others.
Awesome. Thank you.